Shalom uvracha to everyone. I hope everyone is well on this Thursday morning, Erev Parshat Yitro. I hope everyone is warm, has been able to begin to dig out from the ton of snow that we had this week. Again, I hope everyone was able to weather the storm safely, had no problems, no power outages, and no slips or anything like that. The sun is out today here in Teaneck, and I hope that everyone has a good day. We continue to daven and hope for the best for anyone who's ill, both in the community and bichlal, and we continue to hope for good things and good development in the future. Again, as I spoke about last week, we continue to hold in our mind all those who are suffering in our community and in the world and in our nation, and we really want to see things go in a positive direction, and things have to move quickly to be able to go in that direction. This week is Parshat Yitro, which of course is kind of the midpoint of Sefer Shemot, of Matan Torah, of the giving of the Torah. But this week I wanted to speak a little bit about the beginning of the Parsha, which of course is the story of Yitro coming and helping Moshe Rabbeinu. And of course, as many commentaries, starting with Ibn Ezra, noted, it is striking that the introduction to Matan Torah starts with Yitro, so to speak, with a Gentile who comes and sees what's going on, identifies with the Jewish people and the Israelites and their struggles, and identifies with what they're going through, and at the same time is here to offer advice on being able to set up the society in the best way possible. And the Ibn Ezra notes that there's a sharp contrast between the previous story of Amalek and the story of Yitro, and that they're two conjoined here, as they are very often in the Bible. On the one hand, Amalek represents the attempt to destroy the Jewish people physically out of no, kind of blind hatred. And Amalek comes, and Moshe Rabbeinu steps up to the plate, but he needs help. He needs help from Aaron and Hur. His hands are heavy. He can't hold his hands up all day. And the lesson there is that in terms of the political and military leadership, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to need help to be able to confront the most terrible enemies of the Jewish people. And that's something that I think many of us understand. And so to speak, Amalek represents one extreme, the anti-Semite par excellence, and Yitro, says the Ibn Ezra, represents the philo side, the one who loves the Jewish people, the one who wants to help the Jewish people, and kind of the contrast of the world in which we're going to live in, where there's unfortunately a lot of hate of the Jewish people, but there's also a tremendous amount of support and love, and there's a lot in the middle of neutrality of people, and not everybody's an anti-Semite, and not everybody's a philo-Semite, and that's one of the challenges I've spoken about in the past. What I do want to note, and again, the Ibn Ezra and others note that, of course, and it's very well developed in the introduction to Dat Mikra on Parshat Yitro, that there's a lot of linguistic connections between the story of Yitro and the story of Amalek. And there too, Yitro says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Kaved hadavar mimcha, it is too heavy for you, just like in the Amalek story. Moshe Rabbeinu's hands were too heavy, ki chvedim, v'yidei Moshe chvedim, they were too heavy. He couldn't handle it alone. He couldn't make it through the day. Here too, Yitro says, you're getting up in the morning, you have tremendous amount of responsibility. Moshe Rabbeinu says that he has three roles. Ki avo elai ha'am lidrosh elokim, the people look to seek God through me. I'm their conduit. They want to ask questions about their life, about their future. And also, Ki avo elai ha'am lidrosh elokim, and also I do mishpat, ben ishu ben re'ehu, I judge cases. I'm the judicial guide. And number three, it says, V'hodati et chukei elokim ve'torotav, I teach them Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu has a three-pronged responsibility, as the Ramban speaks about. He's kind of the guide and the spiritual and emotional guide of the people in terms of helping them connect to God. He's also the judge, dealing with tort cases right on the spot. And number three, he's also the Talmud Torah. He's the Rebbe par excellence. He teaches them Torah. He guides them in Torah. And what's interesting is that Moshe Rabbeinu, like many of us, thinks that he alone can do everything. And he's kind of the Superman, and he tries to do everything. And sometimes when you try to do everything, and sometimes when you, and definitely since you have direct connection to God, even you might think you're the best, and so you're the only person who can do that. You're the only person who can handle it. And dafka, sometimes it takes an outsider like Yitro to recognize that no, there's a better way to do it. Sometimes, I remember also when I was younger, when people would bring in consultants from the outside. So sometimes it's a waste of money. And we all say, oh, you need a consultant? Do it internally to the organization. Do it internally to the school. Why do you need an expert to come and do these things and suggest things? Do it internally. Give other people inside. But sometimes it's dafka. It's specifically worthwhile to have a new, fresh pair of eyes. Have someone from the outside look at the problems and suggest, because they're not necessarily invested in the same way, and they don't have the blinders and the blinkers, that a person has on, the blinders that a person has on and doesn't see. And Moshe Rabbeinu, in this point here, he couldn't see that, yeah, he was doing this and it was great, but he would burn out very quickly doing all these jobs. And there had to be things that should be directed to him, and there were things that had to be set up a different way so that the community and the polity could exist. And Moshe Rabbeinu needed the Yitro. HaKadosh Baruch Hu agrees to Yitro. Yitro himself says, if God agrees to my plan, then go with it. Meaning Yitro has a certain humility to him, that he recognizes that he's an outsider, but he also recognizes that he can see things. Later on in Sefer Bamidbar, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to call Yitro, V'hita lanu le'einayim. You will be our eyes, which is exactly what in the past. You were able to see things that I was not able to see, that I was too wrapped up in the future. I've often said from the pulpit that I obviously believe that therapy, psychological therapy, is a very important and helpful tool, especially when people are in acute crisis. But even if they're not in acute crisis, I once said that I think everybody should spend at least a year in their life going to therapy, even if there's no acute crisis or anxiety or depression or any real problem or marital crisis. Just therapy is a good thing once in your life. I know that many in PhD students in psychology, they have to also go into therapy themselves for a year or two in order to be able to that's part of their thing. Process group and other things like that. Just to bounce off someone else who can be a little bit more detached, can help you. I've always said that I feel like if I had not gone into therapy when I had my challenges, I would not be married today. It helped me unpack things. It helped me see things that maybe, I was blinded to. And Yitro here helps Moshe Rabbeinu. He helps him say, you know what? The judicial part of it, a lot of it can be done by others. You don't have to micromanage every single case of this person's wagon running into this person's stall and this person's this running in. Those cases you can teach people. You can empower people. You can broaden the leadership. And that can leave you to direct and focus on connecting the people to God, connecting the people to their Torah, teaching Torah at the highest level. The same thing with rabbis and teachers and guidance. And again, to know when to delegate and know when to get involved and to micromanage and be involved in everything and when not to be involved in everything. And sometimes people can overwhelm themselves and they have to pull back. But it's very important to always have others to be able to help you and help guide you and throw out ideas and challenge you to see where you're going right and where you're going wrong. And that's an important thing. And to be open to that. Moshe Rabbeinu, that's another thing. Moshe Rabbeinu was open to it. He didn't see it. He didn't shut down, but he was open to it and he was willing to accept it. And that's something that all of us in our life, sometimes the outsiders can see things and help us shape to make the best choices and to create the best environments, the best organizations, the best shuls, and hopefully also in our family life to make some of the best choices and not do everything ourselves. I want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Unfortunately, we're not going to be in shul, but I want to wish everybody who can to participate in our Zooms, and I wish everybody and those who are going away next week, if they are, please again be safe, be careful, and let's try to just again take care of each other. Shabbat Shalom.